Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking Dust of Snow, Robert Frost's Paradox of Joy. It's literally just a tiny 8-line poem, but as we're going to see in a minute, it packs a massive punch. It's this profound look at how our absolute darkest days can be totally interrupted by the most unlikely, unconventional things imaginable. Okay, let's dive into this. Can a poisonous tree actually cure a day of regret? I mean, it almost sounds like a riddle, right? Usually when we think of poison, we think of danger, sickness, or, some looming threat. But in the literary world we're exploring today, Frost takes our typical expectations and just turns them completely upside down. He sets up this brilliant mystery right out of the gate. He's taking elements of nature that we'd normally associate with pure negativity, and he's using them to spark this sudden, brilliant shift in human emotion. So let's read through the first half of this short piece together. And as I read, I want you to picture a bleak, freezing winter landscape. The speaker is just standing there, completely lost in a heavy, miserable mindset. Listen to how Frost sets the scene. The way a crow shook down on me, the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. Notice how stark and still those words feel. The pace is slow, it's methodical. The imagery is quiet, almost suffocating in its wintry isolation. A black crow, a quiet shaking of branches. It perfectly captures that feeling of just being frozen in this contemplative, unhappy mood. But then, literally in the blink of an eye, the energy entirely shifts. Listen to the second stanza. Has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. Do you feel how the rhythm just bounces right there? The pace quickens up, it's lighter, it's totally energized. In exactly 4 short lines, that thick, depressing fog from the first stanza completely lifts. We've basically just witnessed the exact split-second moment the speaker's entire perspective on his day goes from absolute misery to unexpected relief. Now, to really grasp this transformation, we have to look closely at Frost's choice of the word rued. If you rue something, you hold it in deep regret. So the speaker wasn't just having, a mildly annoying Tuesday. They started their day feeling genuinely depressed, completely hopeless, or weighed down by some heavy, lingering regret. In their mind, the day was a total write-off. It was ruined. And let's be honest, we've all had those days, right? The kind where you just want to pull the covers over your head and completely give up on the next 24 hours. And here is where the absolute genius of Frost kicks in. What actually breaks this deep state of regret? A hemlock. A literal poisonous plant. It's historically known for its toxicity, and it has these little white flowers. We really have to step back and ask ourselves, why on earth would Frost use a toxic plant as the catalyst for a mood boost? It's completely counterintuitive. You'd naturally think a poisonous tree would just add to the misery, right? Like it would be a symbol of the toxic thoughts swirling around in the speaker's own mind. Now, what's really fascinating here is the contrast between standard poetic nature tropes and Frost's deliberate, much darker choice. Usually, when poets want to evoke feelings of relief or beauty or some grand shift toward joy, they write about majestic trees. They'll use a sturdy oak, a colorful maple, or maybe an evergreen pine, because those are safe, right? They're beautiful, traditionally inspiring symbols. But Frost, he totally rejects that. He reaches right past the beautiful maple and intentionally chooses the deadly hemlock. He is deliberately setting a dark, foreboding stage for us. And he does the exact same thing with the wildlife. Think about the birds we usually see in uplifting poetry. We get singing nightingales, majestic eagles, beautiful white doves, maybe cheerful little robins. What does Frost give us instead? A crow. I mean, think about the images that pop into your head when you think of a crow. Scavengers, omens of bad luck, spooky graveyards, and that loud, harsh, grating cawing sound. Once again, Frost is doubling down on dark, unconventional, and honestly, traditionally frightening imagery to build his scene. So we're looking at the text, and it forces us to ask this fundamental question straight from the source material. What do the crow and hemlock actually represent here? Is it joy or is it sorrow? It's just a brilliant subversion of our expectations. Traditionally, as we've just discussed, these symbols absolutely represent sorrow, doom, maybe even death. They are typically the antagonists of the natural world. But in this specific poem, Frost completely flips the script. These dark figures aren't bringing doom, they're actually acting as the unexpected catalysts for something entirely different. So the crucial point is the interaction between these dark elements and the falling snow itself. Let's look at the dust of snow. What does this actually stand for?
Well, it's simply the fine, powdery snow that gets shaken off the branches by the crow's clumsy movement. It's this incredibly simple, very brief physical action, but in stark contrast to the heavy, dark symbols of the crow and the poisonous hemlock, this light, pure dust of snow represents a sudden jolt of reality. It's a delicate, beautiful interruption falling right out of a very dark, toxic place.
If you lay out the narrative structure of the poem, it follows a beautifully logical flow. Step 1, we establish the core problem, which is a day of heavy regret. Step 2, we introduce the dark catalyst, that unconventional duo of the crow and the hemlock 3. Step 3, we get the action, which is a sudden, surprising dust of snow falling on the speaker. And finally, step 4, the totally unexpected solution, a saved day. We can clearly see how a very human problem meets a seemingly negative natural catalyst to create an entirely positive outcome. Which brings us directly to this profound change of mood. Frost explicitly states that this incredibly simple interaction with unconventional nature is what saved his day. Think about that for a second. It wasn't some grand revelation. He didn't win the lottery. He didn't suddenly solve all his life's problems. A bird shook a branch on a poisonous tree, and some snow fell on his shoulder. That's literally it. And yet, that tiny, seemingly insignificant physical sensation was just enough to snap him out of his own head and rescue the part of the day he hadn't yet wasted. And this brilliantly illustrates a much wider philosophy that Frost actually held dear throughout his entire life. Consider this quote directly from the poet himself. Always, always a larger significance. A little thing touches a larger thing. We can zoom right out from this specific snowy day in the woods to a macro view of the whole human experience. Frost is telling us that the most massive shifts in our mental state don't always require massive events. A little thing, like a speck of snow falling from a crow's movement, can touch a much larger thing, like the human soul, and completely redirect it. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to connect this directly to you. Have there been times when you felt depressed or hopeless? We all have those days where everything just feels overwhelmingly heavy and gray, where we get completely wrapped up in a day we've rued, exactly like the speaker. It is so easy to get trapped in our own minds, so convinced that our bad mood is a permanent fixture of our reality, that we forget how quickly a sudden, simple sensory experience can snap us right back to the present moment. So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought straight from the source text. Have you experienced a similar moment that changed your mood that day? Actually, maybe it wasn't a crow or a hemlock tree in the freezing snow for you. Maybe it was a weird song suddenly coming on the radio, or a stray dog looking at you funny, or even just a sudden gust of wind. The world is absolutely full of these tiny, unconventional catalysts, just waiting to snap us out of our regret. Keep your eyes open for your own dust of snow, because unexpected joy is very often hiding in the absolute darkest places. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.